happens after the last breath? Does the self dissolve into emptiness, or does it cross portals beyond human comprehension? Welcome, soul traveler, to the mystery of mysteries. Today we dive into one of the most profound and enigmatic texts of Tibetan Buddhism, the Bardo Thodol, more widely known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Imagine a guide that accompanies you through the deepest and most mysterious moments of existence. This is the role of the Bardo Thodol. And no, this is not just a simple manual on the end of life. It is a map, a spiritual guide for what happens right after death. Get ready, for together we will cross this portal, unravel its messages, and perhaps come to understand a bit more about what it means to exist. While modern science focuses only on the physical cessation of life, ancient traditions like Tibetan Buddhism offer profound insights into the journey beyond. The Bardo Thodol was created by Padmasambhava, a legendary and almost mythical figure in Tibetan Buddhism. Born in India, he is widely recognized as the one responsible for bringing Buddhism to Tibet in the 8th century. Tibetan tradition reveres him as the Guru Rinpoche, which means precious master. But Padmasambhava was not just a monk. He was a deeply profound spiritual master, a yogi who mastered mystical techniques and esoteric teachings. The Bardo Thodol was born out of this master's desire to guide not only the living, but also the dead, offering them a path to liberation even after the last breath. From a young age, Padmasambhava displayed extraordinary mystical abilities, being recognized as a Mahasiddha, a figure who has attained an extreme level of spiritual realization, developing spiritual powers, or siddhis, considered miraculous. He was invited to Tibet by King Trisong Detsen, who sought to expand Buddhism and strengthen the country spiritually, unifying the people under a single belief system. At that time, Tibet was a place of intense shamanic practices and animist beliefs, strongly rooted in the Bon religion, the indigenous Tibetan spiritual practice. This diverse and even chaotic spiritual atmosphere presented challenges to the spread of Buddhism. Upon arriving in Tibet, Padmasambhava faced resistance from various cultural and spiritual forces. The local deities and spirits of Bon traditions resisted Buddhism, and Padmasambhava used his knowledge of magic and tantric ritualism to tame these spirits. This integration of Bon deities and practices into Tibetan Buddhism was crucial to establishing a lasting spiritual foundation. Thus, Padmasambhava founded Tibet's first Buddhist monastery, the Samye Monastery, and began to transmit profound teachings about the mind, reality, and the cycle of existence known as samsara. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is an understanding that death is not the end, but a transitional state, a moment of opening to the possibility of spiritual liberation. Padmasambhava understood that at the moment of death, the mind enters a special state where, free from the distractions of the physical body, it becomes more receptive to the ultimate truth. He realized that this was a unique opportunity for liberation, but he also knew that most people when they die, are lost in illusions and fears that keep them from this possibility. His mission was to create a guide that could be recited by those accompanying the dying, or even studied in life, so that the mind would be prepared for the Bardos, the transitional states after death. In essence, he wanted to ease suffering and open doors to enlightenment, even when everything seems uncertain and dissolving. This compassion is the foundation of the Bardo Thodol. He also knew that many might not achieve enlightenment in life, but he saw in death a last opportunity, and so he offered instructions for practitioners and disciples to recognize the clear light, the pure manifestation of the mind at the moment of their passing. But what exactly does the Bardo Thodol contain? What are these transitional states it guides us through? And how can ancient wisdom from the 8th century illuminate our understanding of consciousness and existence? In our next exploration, we will journey through the 3 Bardos described in the Bardo Thodol: the Chikai Bardo at the moment of death, the Chonyad Bardo of visions and apparitions, and the Sidpa Bardo leading to rebirth or liberation. Prepare yourself for a journey into the greatest mystery we all face. Whether you approach this as spiritual truth, psychological metaphor, or simply a fascinating cultural artifact, the Bardo Thodol offers profound insights into consciousness itself and the art of both living and dying with awareness. Enlightenment is not just a distant goal, it's a state of being available to all. In the Bardo Thodol, we find the promise that liberation is within reach, even in the moments of greatest uncertainty. As we navigate these Bardos, we must confront our fears and illusions. Each step taken along this luminous path is a step closer to recognizing our true nature. In the clarity of the moment, the soul recognizes the clear light, the pure manifestation of its essence. This recognition is the key to liberation, to breaking free from the cycles of rebirth. Fear can often feel like a dark abyss, threatening to consume us. But in this moment lies the opportunity to confront and dissolve those fears, transforming them into wisdom. In transcending these attachments, the soul experiences liberation, a return to its innate essence. This is the ultimate goal of the teachings of the Bardo Thodol. As we prepare to journey through the Bardos, we embrace the unknown with courage and curiosity. Each Bardo offers profound lessons and opportunities for the soul to grow. In our next exploration, we will embark on the journey through these 3 Bardos, discovering the lessons and experiences that await us in each realm. Join us as we delve deeper into the mysteries of life, death, and the journey of the soul. Together, we will uncover the wisdom found within the Bardo Thodol and its relevance to our lives today. The Chikai Bardo, the moment of death itself. While modern medicine focuses only on the clinical ending of bodily functions, the Bardo Thodol reveals a complex process unfolding at multiple levels of consciousness. In the Chikai Bardo, the dying person experiences the sequential dissolution of the 5 elements. First, the earth element dissolves. The body loses its strength, becomes heavy, and sinks. The water element follows. Bodily fluids dry. The mouth becomes parched, and vision blurs. Then the fire element dissolves. Body heat fades, beginning at the extremities and moving inward. As the air element dissolves, breathing becomes shallow, then ceases altogether. These physical changes correspond to inner experiences, hallucinations, visions, and a shifting sense of reality. Finally, the consciousness element begins to dissolve. The mind enters a state of profound clarity as awareness separates from the physical body. This is where modern understanding ends, seeing only darkness and cessation, but where the Bardo Thodol reveals the journey is just beginning. At the completion of the dissolution process, a remarkable phenomenon occurs: the manifestation of the primordial clear light. In the Bardo Thodol, this is described as a dazzling, pure and immense brilliance beyond any light experienced in life. The clear light is not something external. It is the manifestation of the absolute nature of the mind, a state of pure, unconditional consciousness, where there is no duality, fear, or attachment. Some know it as the higher self, others as the solar mind. There are many names for this state of totality and infinite peace. For the spiritual practitioner, the Chikai Bardo offers the possibility of final liberation. If the soul can recognize the clear light as part of its essence, it attains instant liberation, nirvana, and there is no need to pass through the other stages of the Bardos. This recognition does not depend on rituals or doctrines. It is a direct and complete experience of the truth, where the mind sees itself without filters or distortions. In this moment, all conditioning, karma, and identities dissolve. On the other hand, for those who are unprepared, the intensity of the clear light can be terrifying. The mind, instead of recognizing the light as its true nature, may interpret it as a threat due to fear or attachment to what is familiar. In this case, the soul retreats, losing the chance for liberation, and enters the next stages of the Bardos, where it faces increasingly distorted and limiting visions according to its karmic tendencies. If the soul fails to recognize the clear light, it enters the second Bardo, the Chonyid Bardo, the Bardo of visions. As Carl Gustav Jung once said, gods and demons are projections of the unconscious, powerful and inescapable until understood as parts of ourselves. In the Chonyid Bardo, the soul finds itself in a state of consciousness, stripped of its physical body, and within a dimension where tangible boundaries no longer exist. Here, the soul experiences projections of its own mind, projections that can appear in both angelic forms and disturbing, frightening visions. This Bardo reveals the mind's essence, where all that has been repressed, desired, or feared emerges in an intensified form. The visions in the Chonyid Bardo directly reflect the emotional and karmic states accumulated by the soul over lifetimes. They manifest in two distinct forms: peaceful visions and wrathful visions. But what exactly are these apparitions? Are they external entities or manifestations of our own consciousness? And how can we navigate through them? In our next exploration, we will journey deeper into the Chonyid Bardo to understand these peaceful and wrathful deities, before following the soul's path into the final Bardo, the Sidpa Bardo, where the momentous choice of rebirth awaits. Join us as we continue to unravel the mystery of what happens beyond the last breath. Whether you approach this journey as literal truth, psychological metaphor, or cultural exploration, the wisdom of the Bardo Thodol offers profound insights into the nature of consciousness itself. In the Chonyid Bardo, the soul enters a realm where thought instantly becomes experience. Without the filter of the physical body, the mind's contents manifest with extraordinary vividness and immediacy. Unlike our waking world, there is no delay between thought and manifestation. Imagine existing in a realm where the boundaries between self and other dissolve, where your deepest unconscious mind becomes the landscape around you. This is the Chonyid Bardo, a dimension of pure mind, where consciousness encounters itself in myriad forms. In this Bardo, all experiences are amplified beyond anything known in life. Colors are more vivid, sounds more penetrating, emotions more intense. The mind, free from the body, experiences its internal energies in an unfiltered way. Everything that was repressed and accumulated emerges with an almost tangible intensity. In the peaceful vision stage, the soul is initially greeted by visions of peaceful deities, which represent enlightened and benevolent aspects of consciousness. These figures may appear as Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, or deities of light, emanating positive qualities cultivated by the soul. The peaceful deities possess a serene presence and offer a sense of peace. Each deity represents a specific aspect of awakened mind: boundless compassion, mirror-like wisdom, discriminating awareness, all-accomplishing action, and the equality of all phenomena. However, for the unprepared mind, these visions may be overwhelming or incomprehensible, leading the soul to retreat and doubt the reality of this experience. The Bardo Thodol teaches that these deities are not external entities, but manifestations of our own higher nature, reflections of our Buddha nature, or innate enlightened qualities. The failure to recognize these peaceful deities as aspects of our own mind represents a tragic spiritual irony. We retreat from our own divinity out of fear, doubt, or attachment to a smaller self-concept. This failure to recognize our true nature leads to the manifestation of more challenging visions. If the soul does not recognize the peaceful, essential nature of the initial visions, it is gradually confronted by more intense visions, known as the wrathful deities. These figures are manifestations of anger, fear, and repressed desires, taking on monstrous and unsettling forms. Importantly, These wrathful deities are not external or malevolent entities, but expressions of the mind itself, reflecting the passions and attachments that still bind the soul to the cycle of suffering. Their terrifying appearance, with multiple arms, animal heads, or fierce expressions, symbolizes the power needed to transform deeply entrenched patterns. Modern psychology might interpret these wrathful deities as projections of the shadow, the repressed, denied aspects of ourselves that we must eventually face and integrate. Carl Jung recognized the profound psychological wisdom in the Bardo Thodol, noting that these visions present opportunities for the soul to recognize and integrate aspects of itself that were rejected or denied in life. Those who maintain full awareness during this bardo can perceive that all these visions, good and bad, peaceful and wrathful, are mere creations of the mind. The recognition of this truth enables the soul to dissolve fear and attain liberation. Thus, even in the midst of terrifying visions, there remains an opportunity for spiritual awakening. At this stage, the Bardo Thodol advises the soul to focus on the clear light, the primordial essence of the mind, described as a vast and pure radiance. Recognizing the clear light is the key to total liberation, as it represents the innate nature of all beings. It is the sun amidst the clouds of visions, the light that remains unchanged despite all mental projections. If the soul manages to see through the visions, it can achieve enlightenment and thus transcend the cycle of rebirth. However, recognizing the clear light is not easy for the common mind. For most beings, the visions are so real and filled with personal meaning that it becomes challenging to see beyond them. Fear and attachment are the greatest barriers to liberation. The visions, in their intensity, can provoke deep fear, especially the wrathful deities, which represent untamed aspects of the psyche. This fear creates a sense of separation, preventing the soul from recognizing the visions as parts of itself. The experience of the Chonyid Bardo, therefore, is not a punishment or purposeless suffering, but a phase of revelation where the soul confronts the mirror of its own mind. It is a test that distinguishes those ready for liberation from those who still require rebirth to deepen their learning. As we venture further in our exploration, we enter the final stage of the soul's journey through the Bardos, the Sidpa Bardo, where the momentous choice of rebirth awaits. Here, the accumulated karma of countless lifetimes exerts its full force, drawing the soul toward its next incarnation. In the Sidpa Bardo, the final stage, the soul faces a crucial moment, the choice of its next body, determined by the accumulated energy of all actions, thoughts, and intentions, what we call karma. It is as if the entire previous journey has led to this point, where what we carry within determines our next destination. Entering this bardo, the soul has already experienced dissolution in the Chikai Bardo and faced its own projections and illusions in the Chonyid Bardo. Now, it finds itself in a state of greater psychic density, where the desire for rebirth intensifies, driven by fears and attachments that have not yet been overcome. This desire, as Tibetan Buddhism teaches, is what compels the soul to seek a new body, a new form of existence. In the Sidpa Bardo, consciousness is influenced by karmic inclinations, which act as subtle marks left by actions from past lives. These marks function as magnetic forces, drawing the soul towards circumstances and experiences that mirror its inner state. If, for example, the soul carries a great deal of fear, that fear might guide it toward a rebirth, where it will face those same emotions. Similarly, intense desires and uncontrolled emotions create a vortex of energy that shapes the kind of life the soul will encounter in the next cycle. During the Sidpa Bardo, the soul experiences a series of visions associated with the rebirth process. These visions often include images of couples in union, a metaphor for the creation of new life. Here, the soul is called to choose a new body, unconsciously guided by emotional tendencies and karmic impulses. In many descriptions, the Bardo Thodol suggests that upon seeing these images, the soul should maintain a state of detachment and lucidity. Only then can it avoid being blindly driven into an undesirable rebirth. For those who can sustain calm and detachment, the Sidpa Bardo offers one final chance for transcendence. There remains the possibility of not being reborn, of choosing the path of liberation. This is the goal of the spiritual practitioner. Rather than being reborn under the sway of illusions and attachments, they must recognize these visions as manifestations of their own mind, ephemeral and empty in nature. Throughout the experiences of the Sidpa Bardo, consciousness feels a strong attraction to a new body, a process that, according to the Bardo Thodol, can be compared to a psychic storm. It is as if the urge to continue existing, to be once again, becomes irresistible. The choice of a new body is not a conscious one. It happens through a deep, instinctive call, where the characteristics of the new rebirth are shaped by the mind's state. It is as if the next body were a mirror of what the soul's mind needs to experience or resolve. This process of choice also reflects the Buddhist belief that each rebirth is an opportunity for spiritual growth. The body the soul will choose aligns most closely with its karmic and spiritual development. According to the Bardo Thodol, preparation for this final stage begins in life by contemplating the nature of our desires and fears while still alive. We become more aware of the impulses that shape our destiny. Spiritual practices, such as meditation and reflection on death, strengthen the capacity for detachment, helping the mind to remain unbound by the dramas that arise in the Sidpa Bardo. Thus, the Sidpa Bardo reveals a simple yet profound truth, that life and death are interconnected, and that the cycle of rebirth is nothing more than a continuous expression of our own choices and perceptions. By freeing ourselves from attachments, we free ourselves from the cycle of rebirth and reach enlightenment, the state in which there is no more rebirth, for there is no longer the illusion of a fixed identity. The Bardo Thodol is not just a religious text or a compendium of esoteric beliefs. It is a tool for self-knowledge, a mirror for our mind, and a map for our destiny. It teaches us that death is the great full stop of the human story, but it is also the portal to new beginnings. As Ram Dass once said, "When you die, there is only one question that matters. How much did you love?" In this sense, the Tibetan Book of the Dead invites us to reflect on our own lives. Are we ready for the final journey? Are we prepared to let go of everything we believe we are? Perhaps by contemplating these teachings, we can not only prepare for death, but also learn to truly live, to see beyond our limited identities, to recognize the nature of mind, and to live with greater awareness and compassion. These are the gifts offered by this ancient treasure of Tibetan Buddhism. If this journey into the unknown resonated with you, share this video and subscribe to the channel. Let us know in the comments what intrigues you most about life after death. For the path of self-knowledge is long, and together we can explore the greatest mysteries of existence. Thank you for watching.